Mr. Slow's game is up first. What just happened here? Do you guys... Can you guys reassure me? Did my stream start and crash, or did I just not start? I'm gonna guess I didn't start, but you guys need to tell me, like, where is he? You know? Um, I've been analyzing, like, by myself for 10 minutes, and I didn't even know I wasn't live. I never went live? I don't understand. I just don't understand. Did I go live and then the stream dropped? Astrobate, Mr. Slow, tell me what happened. Was I live and then the stream crashed, or was I never live? I am completely confused. We're going to start right into game one. Regadinsky versus... You just got the first notification that you were live. That's crazy. Okay, so I thought I was live. I was talking for like 5 minutes to myself. All right, our game one is Kurt Ritter with black. This is from 1940 in Germany. Richter, German champion, a favorite of Mr. Slow, plays the Budapest Gambit, Fajarwitz variation with 94. I literally have never played against this in a tournament game, only Blitz or here, like online. But interestingly, I don't think I've ever seen it happen in an over-the-board game. Like, even in other people's games at a tournament where I was playing. So it's that infrequent, really. And our friend, someone on sound, was playing this against me quite a bit. So I can say that 94... I used to have this... There was one player at the Boylston Chess Club who was like 1800 Blitz player. He used to play it. Bill... I can't remember his name now. Very, very rarely have I seen it. You know, I like knight f3, and then on check, bishop d2. Mr. Coffee, good to see you. You know, it seems like you haven't been as involved lately. Feel free to send in a game. You know, for the Thursdays. You don't have to. Maybe not tonight, but maybe next time. Although you haven't had many games, I guess. So here, you know, some good players have played this variation. I thought it was counterintuitive. I used to play knight on bd2. And that's the more common move. It's interesting. See Dautov, Gutmann. See how knight on bd2 is actually more common than bishop d2. But I think bishop d2 is more forcing in a way. It's counterintuitive. Knight takes d2. Knight on b takes d2. Is there any way that black could try to hang on to this bishop? Bishop f8. Theoretical novelty. Oh my god. Wow. Anyway, guys, we just got a tip from Masturbate, $6, taking us up to 401. Actually, 341, because Nils' $60 doesn't count. Nils paid for his lesson with a payment on the donation bar, so he always like messes up my donation bars. But don't look at gift lesson payment in the mouth. All right. Anyway, I like bishop d2. Have you told him to stop doing that? Yeah, I just have this problem with like discouraging people from paying me or criticizing them. Every time I want to be like, hey, don't do that, I'm like, he's paying me. I don't know, you know. I'm like, all right, whatever. As long as they're paying me, you know. I don't know. I feel like, oh my god. Avar Khan drew against Dreyev in 2003. What? Where was that, dude? Where could he have played Dreyev? Ah, ICC. Aha. Oh yeah, right. Whatever, bro. Online chess. Avarth Khan drew with Dreyev. Oh brother. All right. So, online chess. I really trust that. Anyway, a3 is the recommended move. But it's always kind of bothered me. You know, it feels slow for white. It also weakens the b3 square a little bit. For some reason, this move kind of creeped me out. Van Vele versus Lev Albert. Hey, good idea, Lev. All right, a3, knight c6, and then knight f3, d6, and this is a pawn sack. And now I wanted to analyze this. What about the move queen c2? Because this looks very logical. And after d5, it almost becomes an Albin. We really need... Yeah, make him look good. Right. We need... Now you distracted me. Mr. Soyan just tipped $40. That's an actual donation. Taking us up to 381. 381. Oh, it looks like 441, but it's really 381. Thank you, Mr. Slow. Very generous. $40 donation. Mr. Slow's submission here today, by the way. This game by Richter with black. Now, I think queen c2 looks good. Bishop f5. I thought this is a move that obviously black has to consider. Well, this is out. This is possible, but probably not very effective. But apparently white has knight to c3, simply knight to c3. This is pretty cool. Boom, boom. And I wish I could play like 2285 so it would go into a position like this, man. Because that's a serious initiative for white. Like, I'll play this any day. Knight is probably not getting out. Not getting out of h1. Peter Meister. I played him somewhere. I think tournament in York many years ago. All right. But d5 apparently is the move for black. So e3, bishop e6. This is very, very much like an Albin now. All right, going back to the game. White plays instead pawn takes pawn. And the problem with pawn takes pawn versus queen c2 is that I feel like it lets black kind of get what he wants, you know. Black gets kind of quick development here. And that's what the players who play things like this and like the Black Mardimer, they want to get their quick development on, and they want to get their initiative for the pawn. They don't mind that they're down a pawn. They have compensation of some kind. So this move sort of, you know, I think it's not a surprise queen c2 is superior. Here's another move, by the way, bishop f4. This is another move that doesn't want to compromise, but in this case, obviously black had g5, which creates pretty serious complications, I would imagine. So queen c2 considerably safer than bishop f4. In any case, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, and now e3. So in general, I think that white would like to kingside fianchetto, but as you can see, there's a trap on the board. If you play g3, knight takes f2, king f2, bishop c5 check, it's like a tactics puzzle. g3, knight f2, king f2, bishop c5 check, king e1, bishop f2 check, and then you win. You win. Black wins after this. Knight takes f2. Somebody like find me this 22, 23, 30 who allowed this, because I want, you know, I want my rating points. Jesus Christ. But you got there, like, Ildar couldn't win with white. A very good player. Alright. Now, knight on bd2 is possible. Knight f2 is not on here. So, knight on bd2 is a reasonable move. White instead played e3, another reasonable move. And now Richter played bishop f5. I mean, I think that black has a couple of candidate moves. Castles, obviously, queen e7, and bishop to f5, possibly bishop g4. I'm not that enthusiastic about bishop g4 because, you know, this pin is pretty easy to break. So I'm not... Antonia, welcome. Yeah, well, Budapest is different. This is the Fajarwitz. I don't really consider it in the same category as the normal Budapest. But yeah, I mean, the normal Budapest is a little bit more sound. But nevertheless, this thing is kind of tricky, you know. I always assumed it was terrible for black. It's not so simple. Bishop f5, and now Peter Clark versus John Carlton, 1972. Peter Clark wrote some good books. He might have been a Russian translator, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But bishop f5, just developing, making it possible to castle queenside. But white's play is just a little bit on the passive side, although what's he supposed to do, you know? Now if you do this, you get hammered again. And lining up this looks dangerous. So white has no active way of developing. Also, like, you gotta watch this diagonal. So Clark lost with white. That was before I was born. Alright, knight on bd2. We transposed to Ildar and Tomas Polak. A couple of good players played white here. Alfonso Almeida. No, that's different. It's Omar Almeida. Alright, knight on bd2. Yeah, I would expect queen e7. This is what bunch of good players played for black. I mean, the queen is lined up here. This looks very logical. You got castles queenside. Fairly reasonable compensation for the sacrificed pawn, I would say. What would the computer say? Like, so I bet it's like a tiny edge for white. No. Wow. Computer already thinks that black is better here. I'm telling you guys, this is why I just don't want to go with that a3. I mean, it's kind of slow, you know. So already black is better according to the engine, but black played the more aggressive queen f6 now. Knight takes e4, trading pieces. Bishop takes e4. Bishop e2, you know, it's like, well, what did white do wrong? Nothing, really. And now black has the initiative. And then black castles queenside. Coffee house, but effective. White plays queen a4. It's difficult to criticize white's play. difficult to criticize White's play here. But at the same time, he's ended up like slightly passive. The next move, though, I don't know about. Black to play here. I would think like we'd be wanting to unleash the G pawn. This is very similar to a. I get it. So the C5 is a trap. The problem is the bishop on E4 is unprotected. So Queen A4 has this discovery with C5. So I think that Black would rather play G5, G4, but he needs to protect this bishop. That's why the queen, objectively might, in a way, be better on E7. Here, though, we discourage development. So Rook HE8. Now, if this was like computer versus Kurt Richter, I think like the game would probably be a draw or something. Like maybe White would even eventually win. But White's having trouble completing his development, and castles into what looks like a Tarash. What's it called? Hennig Shara Gambit. But if you don't castle kingside, what do you do? That's the problem here. Bishop D2 drops B2. It's pretty difficult to justify that. So it's like, what do you suggest that White do here? Castles is pretty much the only option, but you're going right into the attack, so to speak. And it's hard to trade pieces. So Black plays G5, obviously threatening G4. And now White is all of a sudden in trouble. Best thing to do when you lose the initiative is try to give the material back. I mean, when you're fighting against a gambit style initiative like this, White needs to trade pieces or give the material back. All right, that's it, dude. Thank you, Mr. Coffee. Just, I don't know, man. One more time and we'll just like ban them. The next time it's a ban. I'm really tired of this insanity. 91. Not a good idea. So I was thinking C5, but I don't know what it does. C5 maybe force Black to take here. But I think that White's already in trouble, no matter what. Is it worth dropping the B pawn to open lines? Yeah, anything to get developed. Well, not about opening lines, just somehow getting yourself developed. But yeah, so Bishop D2. I think the attack is already pretty strong. Although in a vacuum, this rook really might as well have been on like G8 or H8. He didn't really get that much out of rook E8. Maybe there's a lift here. But yeah, I mean, White needs to find some kind of, I don't know if White's lost here. It's only slightly better for Black. Yeah, C5 is a try. At least C5 would get the bishop off of this hot diagonal. Force him to take there. And like you get a breather for a second. Maybe sack and exchange. Well, doesn't seem to work. There goes that idea. So according to the engine, just 92. But Black already has a very large advantage. Plus 1.5. So White castled into an attack, basically. And it's really hard to point to exactly what they did wrong. But this is extremely passive. 91. And then a hyper conservative move by Black, really. King B8. Like, who expected that at this moment? He didn't like the check on G4, I guess. Now F3. Understandable. But now the dark squares. Looks like a tuning fork. Protecting a7. I mean, well, obviously a7, but it's like guarded by the knight anyway. So, Mr. Slow is I think Mr. Slow is making a spoiler allusion to a spoiler or something. He's alluding to spoilers where like the knight is going to be leaving the building. Um, so the idea is that King B8 protects A7, and that way like this knight can leave the building at some point. White plays F3, and now White probably expected a retreat. Bishop F5, Bishop or G6. That's it. But he gets instead this provoking move, Queen E5. So White has F4 or G3. If you take, you're getting mated. Check, king here, check, king here, and mate. Note that King B8 was not necessary in that variation. But G3 is less weakening in F4, I suppose. Now he retreats, Bishop F5, possible here. But the bigger problem really is this. I think we're threatening Bishop C5. Though I suppose even there, Black can maybe have to worry about Knight G2 protecting this. So White's next move, I don't know what to recommend here for White. He couldn't get his pieces out the back row. He's terribly immobilized. So this is a good example of coordination is more important than material. But I feel kind of bad for White. He didn't make any really horrible moves. I mean, in retrospect, was Queen A4 really bad? Well, not the best. Again, I want to go back to the highlight move 6. I like Queen C2 if we're going to play something there. But again, I'm not really a big fan of this A3 thing. Although it's the main line. Rook F2 protects the bishop on E2. But on the other hand, it doesn't do a lot about this diagonal. In fact, it makes it worse. I mean, I keep feeling like, okay, Black's pieces are perfectly placed. I keep feeling like there might be some sort of back rank tactic. Knight D4 was played. It's an elegant move, This is kind of the obvious try. What would this do? This would, by threatening to take the knight at G2, you would undermine the E3 pawn. I'd say that's the routine thing to do. Other than that, it's kind of hard to come up with a move for Black. I mean, maybe Bishop D3, just trying to get in there. So he finds this move not because he's superhuman. It's a forcing move by nature. I mean, you're threatening in here, bishop there, and you're threatening to knock out the white square bishop, which is a key defender of the whole position. But the real question is, after pawn takes, we just sacrifice the knight. What do we have? And you can look at queen takes and say, well, we're double attacking there, but the problem is bishop E3. So what happens here at the end of the day? Bishop E3, rook takes, knight takes, queen takes, and White resigned. Because he's starting this and this. So even if you play rook f1, you have to deal with this, and then you lose the exchange, so you're piece down. But one question. I was going to say, what about bishop takes d4? The problem with bishop d4 is that white could go here, right? And then bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes. It's equal material. This isn't a win. This is closer to equal. Black is better, but it's not winning. So this was important. E takes d4, queen takes d4, threatening that. And the point was, boom, does white have another option here? And I think, you do have another option. What about rook d1? Various possibilities. Queen takes, bishop takes, rook takes e2, rook takes d4, bishop takes d4. This is murky. Rook d1 seems like the only move. Am I missing something here? Rook d3? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Arsenal's here. Is it rook d3? You guys, I bet Kurt Richter did a lot of puzzles back in 1940. It's like Puzzle Master. Is it this move? Is that the move, boys and girls? I don't know. Is that forcing enough, really? Well, I guess we're not down any material. The material's equal, so. Anybody vote for rook d3? Okay, let's check with the engine. It's also rook takes e2, sacking the queen. I wasn't 100% sure about this, but it's good. Rook d3 is second best. But everything wins. So in the game, queen takes e3, rook f1, he just snapped the bishop and white resigned down a piece. Amazing how easy it is to lose against the dreaded, Fajarowicz. But again, I've always had a weird feeling about this a3 business. I think it's overrated. It's just too easy. Is it that easy to refute it? Not that easy. I prefer to play more traditionally with knight f3. Okay, next game. Morales is here. Mr. Slow donated $40. Our actual donation total is $381. We are 381 out of the required 500. GM tournament. We've had a little shuffle. I'm now the only American player in the GM tournament in 2 weeks. It's a strong field. No more super prodigies. No more overrated super prodigies. Just legit prodigies. Lee Marvin wins by default. But all right, going to be a good tournament coming up in 2 weeks. I'm starting on the 26th through the 3rd of March. The Ides of March. Actually, the 26th through the 2nd of March, and the 3rd is the Hungarian Team Championship the following day, Sunday, and then we'll have a simul that day because I didn't get enough chess. So, all right, Morales is up. So I've been advocating the bishop c5. Hello. But that's not what most people play. Most people play first and foremost, well, the Dracula Frankenstein stuff. Um, and then knight to c6. Ray Gordon Fan Club, are you gonna join that other weird player in the toilet zone of timeout? You guys can talk about that. Stream coming live into the Kapialani Medical Center cafeteria, where his longtime listener pretends to be hard at work and not taking excessively long break. Man, there was a horrible accident in Houston. No, Austin. No, Houston. Austin? Austin, I guess. Where a car or truck or car crashed into a hospital emergency room wall. And I was just thinking, like, it's really bad taste, but because someone actually died from this accident, the driver of the car died, but I could just see, like, the headlines, 6 hospitalized when car crashes into emergency room wall. You guys get it? Like, 6 hospitalized. Um, the doctor said that the ER doctor said that, like, only the driver died because, like, the car apparently crashed through the wall of the hospital into the ER, but it hit like a giant fish tank that actually slowed it down. So apparently, like, the fish tank saved people's lives, is what they said. Poor fish or whatever. I guess nobody reported it. The fish made it, but um, the car was like still. It was like still going. Like the. I don't know. I haven't read about it today, but it was apparently not like a intentional thing. They just accidentally drove their car through a wall. But the driver sadly passed away. But I was just thinking, I was surprised, like, late night comedians and stuff. It's kind of bad taste, but I mean, you could just see that it's such a headline, right? When the driver said the tag was empty. Seriously, I mean, you hospitalized 6 people. You literally hospitalized them. Okay. Anyway, back to where we are. Knight c6, d3. Thank God for ER fish tanks. Um, so the main line here is knight a5. And I have a big thing for knight a5 lately. Guys, I'm really hardcore pushing the knight a5. I'm serious about this. I say that this is the future of the black side of the Italian game. But I did have a computer yesterday beat the crap out of me. Interestingly, the guy playing with the computer with white didn't play the engine's number 1 move here. He played, I think, bishop e2 against me. And then he played like God. It was like, maybe this move he played on his own, and then he played the rest of the game, like, perfectly. But yeah, knight a5 it's the future of chess. What it needs is a name, though. I haven't. It's like I've got the Kraken and the 3 a.m. defense, but the refutation of the Italian game, it just doesn't have a name. I need a good name for it. The emergency room variation. All right. You could call it the hospital. The night, as Sarah Wan likes to say, the night is in the hospital. The oxalot. It doesn't have a name, the oxalotl. It needs a name. But I did lose my first game to a computer. I had another game where a human player actually played a good game and we drew. I was under pressure down a pawn. most of the game. But anyway, that's another story. Knight c6, d3, and now bishop b7. And obviously this is kind of passive. For black. It's like a Hungarian defense. So I feel like you're just encouraging white to play f4 with no goldfish. It is kind of shaped like a goldfish cracker. F4. It's like f4 for free, dude. What a beautiful position to play f4. Black doesn't have any d5. You just have a really freaking good... This is just like Dream Vienna. You got f4. It's a King's Gambit without sacrificing a pawn is what this is. It's a King's Gambit declined with the bishop on e7. He doesn't even have the bishop out on an active square. So it's actually... What is this? Literally a passive King's Gambit declined. Larson, Najdorf, 1979. But man, black must love... To play this with black, you have to love a passive position. My God. So I have a question. All right, this is Morales' game with white. I mean, should black take on f4? Or like, what's the defensive strategy here for black? It just... Knight a5 can't be played, or maybe it can. I mean, if I'm playing knight a5 in the other line, we might as well play it here, right? How bad can it be? That's a problem. So I have to recapture. No, but I'm serious. Maybe this 95, I'm obsessed with it. No, you can castle. You have a lot of moves, but I'm just saying knight a5 might be legitimate. Take, take, take. So computer wants to take, take, take. Knight takes c4. Knight takes c4. So this is like my knight a5 Italian game, but even better for white. It looks like. Because you have the F file here, which isn't really bad. Kind of like bonus. Bishop g4, queen d2. Some sort of bonus advantage. Very strong pawn on e4. It's hard to argue that black would have enough compensation. But I'm just saying, like, how can black possibly defend this position in an active way? Bishop g4 is the only move that feels active, but it like involves giving up your good bishop all the time. Look at the score here. Seriously, can I copy and paste this? My God. The bishop g4 sucks. You know, you're just like giving up your good bishop for no reason in a lot of lines. So I would think, like, honestly, pawn takes pawn. The problem with this is, you know, white's recapturing without ever wasting a tempo on moving the bishop. So black's better off, like, waiting, okay? Black's best move is probably castles. So black castles, you castle. Now black runs out of waiting moves. That's the problem. I think the issue really is, like, the side with more space has more waiting moves. Knight a5. Oh, shit. Now with the king on g1, this might actually work. That's how Larson Najdorf went. Uh-oh. Yeah, queen d4. This makes sense. So I wonder if white has a better move here. Maybe... I mean, to be honest, guys, couldn't you theoretically play, like, a3? Yeah, a3 is a move. I mean, I don't have an issue with this. It totally takes knight a5 out of the equation, and I think that white is just better. Or a4. You could also play a4. Obviously. a3 is definitely good. And f5 is the other way to play the position. And then you don't care as much about knight a5. You're like, screw it, I don't care, you know. Alright, so castles is probably the worst move. But anyway, this is not what happened. In the game, black played bishop g4, and this is always bad, right? But how bad is the $1,000,000 question. Where's Asterbate? He probably has some of these. He's kind of quiet here. Let's see. Player. Let's just do for fun. Player. Asterbate. White. All set. Asterbate has 2 games, dude. Asterbate and Morales. The Asterbate Morales variation. Oh, I'm going to move my mic. I'm sorry, guys. The fan makes a lot of noise. I forget sometimes. Apologize. Oh my god. What did I just click on? I just clicked on something random. Hello. Yeah, so castles I don't know about. Feels like you should play h3. Takes. Queen takes. And then knight d4. Guy played knight a5. We do have to watch this sort of bishop h4 thing, but it's not even on. Usually a good square. Alright, so what happened here? Morales just castles, and we're following Asterbate versus Yazdan. So Morales, you're not concerned about knight d4. Don't tell me we have like pawn takes pawn or something. You're not concerned about knight d4. Damn, the guy did similar thing to what Asterbate did. I understand that g takes f3 is not a problem, but it's like a kind of minor bummer that it closes down the f file. But what I was wondering is, like, do you have this? You know, this is what we're talking about, something like that. Yeah, pawn to bishop takes, pawn takes. No, I mean, I get it. Like, this type of position is your king is going to h1 and you're totally safe. Everything is good for white. So after castles, Asterbate's opponent played queen d7. And Morales' opponent played knight a5. Yeah, maybe knight a5 is objectively a better try. So f takes e5, and now maybe not. Oh no, you have bishop takes f7 check. Oh god. Yeah. Wow. Knight takes c4, d takes c4. I win a pawn. Wait. No, knight takes c4, you're taking on f6. And win a pawn, you win a piece. So here, bishop takes f7, he missed this. Check, and then takes, and then black is just lost. Very basic baby game. Baby level tactics. Sun Prism with 10 bits. Big money, no whammies. Speaking of donations, 10 bits is 10 bits. What's up, Nidog? Are you recovered? What was it again? Chlamydia? You had something. What did you say you had? Alright, bishop takes f6. Okay, knight f6, bishop f6, check. Black could play queen f7 here. I think that might be preferable to preferable to king d8. You know, you guys, what do you think? You know, king d8 or queen f7? I guess either way it's bad. Queen f7 is a blunder. Black's whole position is a blunder, Arsenal fan. I mean, his position literally is a blunder. No, king d8 is triple exclam. Well, no, I mean, I get it, but, you know, at least black can, like, play a few more moves. I think I'd rather take my chances here than with my king on the d8 square and the queen still on the board. I like black's chances better in the other variation. This is like no way you're living here, you know. Okay, against an incompetent opponent, like black could win, but I mean, chances of survival are very little. Material no longer really has a lot of meaning at this point. I thought he would play like bishop d4, but there's so many problems. Black should just resign. Really nothing to see here. Then that's a beautiful mate. You don't see that every day. Yeah, Morales just likes to throw in the quickies. Ugh, beautiful mate. Alright. You sure this wasn't an Asterbait game? You guys are very similar stylistically. You could land in an emergency department and still not survive this, seriously. No, Morales submits like these 3-minute games. And they both, you know, he and Asterbait both play every game in 3 minutes. I guess Morales just doesn't have time to play longer games, which sort of sucks. The Vienna is a good opening. Oh, Mr. Slow's submitting a game for next time. He gets ahead of the... He likes to stay ahead of things. Alright, next week. Mr. Slow, thank you again for submitting an interesting game. So we got Arsenal fan up next. And Arsenal fan has submitted what he said was a tough French defense. Now, when you sent me a French defense, Ars, I thought you were going to be like showing me a game from black. So I was surprised, you know, it turned out you were playing the French with white. I know you used to play the French with black. I don't know if you still do. So this is interesting. Arsenal playing white side of a French. E4, E6, D4, D5, Knight D2. The exchange variation is brutal. Yeah, that's sickening. It's really sickening when people play the exchange variation. They should have their chess license taken away from them. Like my last round of the World Senior. Congratulations! You beat me with the exchange French. Alright. You sucked the life out of... I played the Petrov. I don't deserve any. I deserve shame as well. Which is more shameful, playing the Petrov with black or playing the exchange variation of the French with white? I would argue that playing the exchange variation of the French with white is more shameful than playing the Petrov defense. More cowardly, you know. They're both cowardly. Alright, so, yes, we know black has two primary moves in this position. Knight f6 and c5. And they're both good. But there are also obscure variations. a6, h6, bishop e7. You know, pretty much everything has been tried. Black plays knight f6. And now bishop d3 is a move, but it's not testing, I don't think. So you pretty much have to push here. Black plays knight fd7. And here you do, I guess, have options. I've played both c3 and bishop d3. Actually, use c3, bishop d3, and f4. Let's get Asterbait out of there. Alright. No, I don't want to do player. Master's database, all set. So yeah, 3 moves. White plays bishop d3 main line. No. I mean, f4 is one of the most aggressive moves, but it's also kind of riskier for white. Bishop d3 is the main line. With c3, I guess, what's the point? You don't commit. It's one or the other. I don't know. So bishop d3, c5, c3, and now knight c6 is amazingly, 10 times more common than any other move, but it's the most natural. And then there is the knight on df3, and there's also knight gf3, which is like Korchnoi gambit or whatever. Korchnoi / Kasparov. You sacrifice the pawn at d4, which we have played. We have played this on the stream. But Arsenal fan plays 92, which is like main line. And then his opponent plays f6, which is rare. I mean, it's a normal idea. At some point, the question is like when. I mean, this is not a complete database. So you see f6 112 master games. Well, there are more games than that if you go to like a commercial database, for sure. But I mean, I don't know. You see queen b6 a lot, but I think a lot of times the queen ends up. To be fair, I mean, the queen, it feels like it ends up a little bit out of play, So CD f6 is like the main line. The queen doesn't go to b6. It sometimes goes to c7 later on. Arsenal fans saying that queen b6 eyes the b2. Obviously it has some advantages and some disadvantages. But I think the thing about the queen that's, my perspective is that it has a lot of mobility on its original square, which shouldn't be underestimated. There's also major variation where you're taking with the queen on f6. That's like Bareyev's methodology. So he'd play like take, f6 takes and takes with the queen. I kind of like queen f6, but it doesn't seem like it's very popular. The queen takes and goes back to f7. The main line is f6, pawn takes, knight takes. Anyways, so black played f6 right away. Now, we had a game 2 weeks ago on the stream that someone submitted, but I don't remember. It was Muleskinner who didn't submit a game for tonight. Muleskinner had a knight f4 game, but I don't remember the exact position. Here, knight f4, queen e7 apparently. I know nothing about this. So after f6, Arsenal took, apparently main move. So basically we have like a normal position where these pawns haven't been exchanged on d4. Well, there are different lines, Antonio, with that involving an exchange sacrifice, but I feel like that exchange sacrifice is usually a slightly different position. And now black played the unbelievable g takes f6. So, knight f6, queen f6. How can white like take advantage of the fact that the pawns weren't exchanged, or is there some way that white can take advantage of the fact that those pawns aren't exchanged here? You know, what does that mean? So black, let's say, takes back the normal way. What I'm asking is who does this benefit, the fact that these pawns haven't been exchanged here? You know, you have a totally normal position except for the fact those pawns are still there. Who does that, like, help or hurt, you know? White doesn't have access to c3 for the knight. Black doesn't have access to b4, which doesn't really help anyway. But, you know, the question, I'm not sure. Queen takes also possible. But anyways, Emery Tate, 1997. I was there. Let's see. View. Emery Tate, Ach Peter, Budapest, 1997. Question. December 1997. I was there. Was I there? I wasn't playing in that tournament. But I do think I was here playing an IM tournament at the same time. Emery got, like, butchered. That might be... I don't remember. Alright. Alright, queen takes f6. Anyway, g takes f6. Wow. That's insane, right? Okay, nothing's protecting h5. But unfortunately, there's a knight in the way, you know, so we can't do that yet. So Arsenal fan here plays knight f4. Now, before we... No, capitalizing may not be simple. Before we do this, let me just ask the question, like, what would happen if we just made, like, the normal move, you know, like knight f3, for example? The real issue is the step plane here in the middle. I mean, if you just like do ordinary moves, I mean, are you getting rolled down the middle? I mean, is this guy just gonna bowl you over with his central pawns? I mean, it could be kind of dangerous, obviously, if you just make absolutely routine moves. So, you know, on the other hand, I mean, the guy plays a really unusual move. You're not sure. I think you should consider all your options. I mean, the obvious thing in this position is that the white squares are weak. So I don't think it would be insane. Knight f3 is just lame. It wouldn't be insane to play c4, in my opinion. You know, it's probably not correct, but I'm just saying it's at least, like, in principle, it might make some sense to try to, you know, attack the white squares. This is the obvious move. It's the most aggressive move, attacking here and opening up queen h5. On the downside, it leaves d4 undefended, but who cares, right? How's this guy protecting e6? So you have e6 and you have queen h5 check. Queen h5 check is practically winning in and of itself. You know, there are cases where we play queen h5 check, knight g6 check. We win the exchange on h8, but black's center is very strong. That's a typical exchange sack, like Morales was alluding to in this type of line. So I think if that's what happens, where we, like, grab some material, but we're kind of cashing in our chips, you know, yeah, exactly. Like, that may not be what we want. But we have other stuff. I mean, mainly you're attacking e6. This is your biggest major threat, you know. So he'll probably play queen e7 or knight b6. Black plays queen e7. And so now your d4 pawn is under pressure. The check on h5, there's two possibilities. The guy can try to run away, like a screaming baby, or he can play queen f7. Pretty funny though. So if we play queen h5 check, he has queen f7, bishop g6. Wow, there's a Goofeld game from 1987. That's insane. Goofeld, Doug Root, 1987. 87. Where would they have played? Where would Goofeld have played Doug Root in 1987, Los Angeles? Wow. You know, it's interesting. Goofeld would later move to the United States in the 90s. And we played in like 1999 or whatever. But I played Maya Chibernidze in a Blitz tournament in like 1986 in Philadelphia, or 87. And someone had mentioned that Goofeld was like one of her handlers, I think. He was like an official representative of the Soviet, or, you know, Soviet, yeah, like. So this must have been like Goofeld pre, you know, capitalist era. He was like an official handler. So interesting, this happened in that game. Wow. And he was unable to beat Doug Root, who was, you know, actually like not a bad player, although I never played him. Queen e7, knight f3. Okay, so Arsenal plays queen h5 check. Black doesn't play queen f7, but the question is, what about queen f7? Bishop g6 is just asking for it. Goofy didn't do it. But it's like, what is Goofeld exactly thinking here? You know, queen takes f7 check, king takes f7. I'm not impressed, bro. He was too busy like chasing down his charges or something. Too hard to concentrate in capitalist Los Angeles as a communist, like women's player handler. It was probably overwhelming for him. Does white have an edge? Like, I'm not really sure. What does white's edge exactly like consist of, Arsenal fan? You know, I'm not convinced. Like, well, maybe our pieces are a little more mobile, but the central pawns are pretty strong for black. I mean, that's a nice wall, and also like our king is really happy the queens have been black's king is very happy the queens have been exchanged. But so the guy runs away. My other question though is this: you know, what exactly is happening here? You rejected this obviously, so takes, and now yeah, wow, this happened. Oh my god. This happened in a game. Yeah, it's kind of a disaster. It's too much for the exchange. I mean, those pawns are just even though black has problems with its development, I mean, still, the pawns are just a nightmare. No, I don't want to do it. But I think, you know, I've got to question your decision here to play queen h5 check. Do you have an itchy trigger figure? I mean, is that really the case? That's what I'm wondering. I'm feeling this e-file here, you know? And what I want to do is annihilate black with some kind of sack, you know? So what I really want to do with white in this position is castle. No, I want to know what black does now. What do we do now? Rook g8, really? Because I would think you'd be a little concerned about this line here, you know? Is it nothing? I mean, because rook g8 doesn't do all that much. You know, I got a knight protecting g2. You don't really have any threats. I mean, I'm not convinced about rook g8. You know, although I'm not convinced about black's position in general. I think the bigger question is like, what would happen if you took the pawn here? I get I get rook g8 avoids like losing the exchange or something, but I'm thinking knight takes e6 may not work because you can, chuck knights into e5, knight e6, queen e6, rook e1, knight e5, f4, and nobody has a clue what's going on, although I think black's doing fine. It looks like black has pretty good control of the center. He just needs to get his king out of the middle, but let's not rush, okay? So let's say you castle. Black takes this pawn. And then there's this. Doesn't look convincing. I mean, it's very similar. It's basically the same line. Let's just double check with the engine. It is good. Surprising. Wow, I thought it was going to say, like, this is nothing. So c takes, rook e1. Wow, that's an insane move. The computer also likes bishop e2. The Mikhail Tal Nezmedinov asked, like, bishop e2. Because obviously, bishop e2 is a strong move here. Yeah, I mean, no, not too many people that are finding bishop e2. But I felt the rook e1. I just wasn't sure, like, how we should play this. Can we recapture? We could recapture, sack a pawn. Then I wanted to play like rook e1. But it's messy, but it's playable. All right, so that's my only thing. I thought playing for the e file was your main thing. Check, now king d8. We're happy to see this. You can't win the exchange because of knight g6, queen f7, necessarily. Castle is Slaggy approved. And now c takes d4. I would be expecting rook e1. Rook e1 like in the past. I'm expecting rook e1. You played knight f3. This is probably not a bad move, I guess. It's a pawn sack. It also defends your... Well, actually, your queen is already defended. Never mind. But anyways. If the pawns start rolling, you have the d5. And then this is... You have a white square bind. I don't know what else to call it. You have a very strong white square kind of force field there up against his pawns. So it's not so easy for him to like roll roll the pawns forward. He takes, you take. It's a legit pawn sack for white, looks like. But now black needs to sort himself out. There are even some weird ideas with bishop a3 floating around. Is it just my imagination, or could that be like... White to play here? Bishop a3? If it was your move? Bishop a3, queen a3, knight takes e6 check, king e7 only move. And the black king doesn't look too safe, but it might not be that easy. I'm not sure we want to sacrifice a whole bishop. Obviously you have a4. This is lost for black. Thank you for the generalization. Alright. But that's not helping anyone, understand chess. I too can turn on the engine and pronounce this is lost. But actually it's not. Alright. Let's state it in a different way. It's not lost for black. it's just difficult for black to play, you know? I mean, I think maybe it's not lost for black, but it's like really hard. Like, you know, computer, you need to be a computer to defend this for black. Or like Gregory Kaidanov or something, you know? Some French players love this kind of thing, you know? They love to like accept sacrifices and walk their king around to the other side of the board. Yeah, but making generalizations about the position is useless. Now that is pretty freaking obvious. So black has to take with the knight. Situation is clarified, and it feels more like a Sicilian to me than a French now. So wide open, and the black king is just not safe. And is the black king ever going to be safe? Is it going to be safe on c7? Is it going to be safe here? Is it going to be safe here? Is it going to be safe here? I mean, I think as long as we don't trade queens, we're in good shape. If I was black, I'd be desperately trying to force an exchange of queens somehow. But this move looks a bit counterintuitive to me. I know you're gonna say, yeah, sure, Sledgy. I like this bishop here because it looks both ways, you know. Okay, it's also slow and it blocks the e-file, but the knight's blocking the e-file anyway. I like the domination of this bishop. Anyway, we're gonna start playing with a4, c4, bishop a3, rook d1. We don't need the e-file anymore. Well, I mean, the problem with bishop e5 is that you're kind of like taunting him to trade off his bad bishop. And while his king is still open, at least, you know, he does trade off a undeveloped piece. So I think you have a lot of good moves here, though, objectively, Ars. I mean, I think you have a very strong position. You could even give up the bishop, probably. I guess there would be an argument for pretty much anything. I mean, a4, knight takes d3, knight takes d3. It is really hard to imagine black. It's hard to imagine black, you know, defending this position successfully unless he could trade queens, you know. Sooner or later, the only salvation for black is simplification. He's going to have to trade pieces somehow. And not that easy to do. You know, trade queens, trade dark square bishops. What is he going to trade? You know, trade light square bishop for knight somehow. But I think you should avoid exchanges. So this is a bit counterintuitive. Although I think that Arsenal still, you know, you still have a huge advantage. But, you know, positionally it seems like a mistake to trade his bad bishop off. On the other hand, you know, bad bishops defend good pawns. So that's the defender of e6. Takes with the king. Yeah, well, the only thing between him and total annihilation is the pawn on d5, and you have tactics, you have sacrifices, you have c4 lever, you have rook d1. You know, he needs to stop c4 first and foremost. I guess his knight does a good job of that. This is coming, though. Rook d1 is coming. And not easy for black. King is not safe. So a4, queen f7. We're not exchanging queens. Here again, I see you play queen h3. It's a tough call. You've got to consider queen e2. And I don't know which one is better. with this, you also have some lateral chances here. With this move, you know, you got obviously the b5 square and just general sort of. So here is keeping pressure on e6, tying him down to e6, threatening knight takes d5. Yeah, no, he can play a6 there, but I still like white. And so now, white appears to be threatening knight takes d5, but again, it's not fatal or anything. So black sacrifices said pawn. And boom. I'm gonna operate on the assumption that your opponent sacrificed this pawn intentionally to try to catch up in development, which may be a good idea. But he's still quite a distance from any serious threats. It looks like rook g8. He needs time to play rook g8. Here he plays f5, but it doesn't seem like... I don't know. The d5 pawn hurts, you know. I mean, that pawn is pretty freaking important. But I don't know what he could do. King e7? No. It's not so easy, you know. Pretty tough to defend d5, actually. I'm not sure he even has it. He doesn't even have an option, right? He can't really defend it. Come to think of it, it just can't, yeah, it can't be defended. And that's major, because now it's like there's nothing between, you know, you and the d file and his king. f5, and that's fine. We're happy to move the knight. I would assume like f4, but you went to b4. Bit strange to me. I mean, this seems more natural. Because from b4, it's like, well, I mean, are you thinking here? It's still okay. I think it's over now. Go alpha 0 and play rook d1 instead of moving that. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of material. It probably is too much. I often go alpha 0 a little too much. And then find myself like losing to some anonymous player. No, I mean, I would guess knight f4 is best. But he's right, Arsenal's right. Knight b4 was better. Wow. Knight b4 was best. Knight f4 is second best. What's the point? Oh, knight d3. I didn't understand. The computer likes this, for example. Knight d3, just trading off his knight. But you could do that from f4 as well. Nothing wrong with knight b4, though. It just looks funny. I think you're winning now. And obviously you have to make sure. There's no getting this back. You know, if you're going to make this sacrifice, it better work. Is this enough? Do we have enough for this? Rook takes, bishop check, e5, rook check. It looks pretty good. Yep. At the end of the day, I mean, black almost fully mobilized their pieces. Almost. I'm thinking c7 for the king here. You have access to Where do you go after king c7? I like Arsenal c7 is risky though, because e6 is safe. This is a very safe square for the black king. What's the continuation now? Do we have 95 is all fine and good, but how do we finish him off here, you know? We need something really strong. I don't mean smell strong. I mean, I'm not sure that b8 is the right square. But definitely not the d file, so it's b8, c8, or c6. Maybe c8. Should be 5, 95. You're winning. Holy shit. Bishop g5. I guess it's important to be, it's important to be, like, objective here. It just occurred to me that you're only down the exchange. I really feel like you sacked the whole piece or something. You know what I mean? Like, you're only down 1.5 or 2 pawns of material. So you really don't have to go completely nuts. Let's see, king b8. Yeah, king b8 is best. It's best. Yeah, this is like the only move actually, Ars. Knight d5 check, king b8, and then bishop g5. It's not, I would even say, like, at your level, below master, I would say, like, a lot of people would mess this up and probably not even win it with white. It's not that easy. Very easy to screw this up. You have a strong attack down the exchange, but one mistake and you're screwed. It's funny that you say that. Okay, king e6 though. I feel like the black king is like less safe on e6 somehow. But I guess the main thing is this queen swinging over. I keep thinking there's something here with queen d3. But possible that black could walk away. I don't know. Can he walk away? This is a very complicated position. There's all sorts of possibilities, but I mean, I was thinking queen d3, and if you take, then check here. I'm not sure this even works. I mean, are you even doing anything here? This may not work. Check, knight f6, and I don't know, man. You guys know what's going on? Do you guys know what's going on around here? This is a tough position. Mate in 1. That's good to know. I missed the mate in 1. Thank you. Alright, so mate in 1 is not allowed. But black has rook a d8 there. So damn. Yeah, you have to find a different move. Queen d3 is not good enough. Yeah, bishop g5. This is the thing that seems to be like killing black in all variations. The black king has a moves. You've been hanging out with Carl Richter. Mr. Slow approaches chess differently than me. He learned from Carl, and Carl the number one thing is to make sure the enemy king has no moves. I never boiled it down to that fundamental concept. Just make sure your opponent's king can't move, and you're in good shape. Yeah, complicated game. Arsenal brings the bishop back. It's a slow move. It looks hesitant. And now rook d8, and we're not happy about that. Dude just hijacked our open file. This is bad. So you can exchange pieces, of course. And now black plays a5, and that was why I was nervous about knight b4 in the first place. You should have played rook e1, so this is apparently even better. Rook e1. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if bishop takes e5 worked. Well, it might surprise me a little. I mean, we are down a whole rook after he takes that. Is this playable? It is playable, oh my god. White's slightly worse after bishop takes e5. For you Emery Tate fans. Bishop takes e5 is not necessary. Okay, rook e1. Okay, another very logical move. Bishop g5 is very strong. The other thing about bishop g5, as Mr. Slow was talking about the king, it also stops rook d8. This disallows rook d8. And if h6, among other things, your bishop can just chill on h4. That's a pretty good bishop. It's killing rook d8. It's cutting off the enemy king. And it's like untouchable on h4. Yeah, the engine pointed out bishop g5 and some other lines. So you lost the d file, losing time. But what about knight d3 now? Well, that's what you did. Okay. Yeah. No, I think you got to do knight d3. I think you got to ask black a question here. Like, why the fuck is he playing a5? Can I just ask this question? What was the guy like, hey, I want to get Arsenal's knight a little closer to my king or something? Because the knight is really, it's making me ask some serious questions. Like, no, seriously, why would the guy play a5? Hey, that knight's not close enough to my king. I want to, like, force it to go to a better square. Is that what he's thinking? Or a5 can't be a good move. Like, you need to consolidate your position here with black. And I don't think that a5 has really anything to do with consolidation. The only thing I can think of is that I'm going to sack the exchange after a5, knight d3, rook takes d3. Maybe I'll desperately try to trade pieces or something, Because the knight on b4, as it stands right now, it's not really doing anything. Yeah, queen d7. Maybe we want to do something with our rook eventually on h8. Is h6 a stupid move? Well, I guess we're going to have problems now. f3 is going to be a problem. Okay, black's position is difficult, but a5 doesn't help. Knight d3, and now e4. And now the shocking knight f4 check. The gallery was stunned when Arsenal found knight f4 check. And obviously, we really have like 3 options here. It feels like we're heading back to the queen side. Yeah, 2 exchanges. You know what is becoming clear at this point is that your freaking queen is out of play. So, what if you just played f3, bro? You were talking about sacking the rook, right? Or whatever. Yeah, well, okay. F3, attacking his knight. He probably has to take, and then you have a nice, well, you have a pleasant choice between pawn takes, getting his knight off g4. Your king is relatively safe, by the way, and queen takes, getting the queen, you know, really active. F3 was played. Oh, F3 was played. Okay. Yeah, F3 was played. E takes F3. This is what happened. Okay. Yeah, pawn takes deserves consideration, but I think you still end up. Your queen is still out of play. You know, that's the problem. So queen takes knight e5. Now, you know, if you don't have compensation for the exchange here, I'm going to eat my hat, you know. Go for the... Arsenal went for the gusto with rook takes e5 now. Rook takes e5, king takes e5. He can still go back there. And this move is probably plausible, right? Rook e5, king e5, check. If king d6, queen here, check. This looks pretty good. But not convincing 100%. So we'd like something more sure. But you have bishop a3 check, right? And now tell me nothing could possibly go wrong here. You just took his knight. What could possibly go wrong? You're just up material now. It's 2 pieces for a rook. And white is winning. And then here. And we enter the technical stage of the game. Gotta be careful. Those two pieces versus rook endgames where, you know, his rook could maraud and maybe grab your queenside pawns. So I think you wanna bear down and play a very solid move here. Looks like you have a lot of good moves here. A lot of good moves. Knight d5 is even possible. Check. Check. This looks very promising. The simple sort of queen e3 maybe. But you played rook takes rook. It's a lazy move, but it's good enough. Queen takes e8. And then, you know, just something like h3. This is the type of scenario I was talking about where, you know, if he gets the queens off the board or something, you know, you could end up in a situation where his rook is marauding and you know, something weird happens in the ending. Sometimes the rook is stronger than the 2 minor pieces. And it could be a little tricky. You would really rather not allow a queen exchange. But I think your mistake is really like exchanging rooks on e8. This looks very strong. Does knight e6 work? I don't know if that works or not. You know, it looks like it loses a piece. But knight d5 is definitely fine. And then you blundered the back rank mate. Oof. Knight d5 check. So, well, I was going to say like h3. If queen e4, I don't really want to trade queens. Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, you have knight e6 there. So the queen exchange doesn't work. Well, actually, it does, because here, you know, he has rook d1 check. So, queen e4 is playable. But instead of that, you know, you always have knight d5 check. Yeah, that's sick, man. Sorry. One with blunder. Very deserved win for black. Okay, Nefedov is up next. Ernest Clark. Thanks, Arsenal, for that painful loss. I don't know if Nefedov is here. Jack 8BC has followed. Fricks GG has followed. Nefedov not here. Brown beer. Speaking of brown beer, I'm going to take a very short break. We'll get back to the rest of the games. Stream will resume in 2 minutes. What's up, guys? We're back. Analysis stream, booze break, bathroom break, and bathroom wine break. No booze. I quit. Seriously. Yeah, Arsenal pillar to post. All right, so Nefedov here with black against Emmett Clark. What was the Clark guy's name again? Peter Clark. It was the IM who wrote the books. Peter Clark, I think. He's probably not even alive. Actually, he could be. There was an old English master we saw an example of one of his games. Pretty strong player. P.H. Clark. I don't know. For all I know, he's dead. But all right, this is Nefedov with black. Oh my god. The Slav. I love the Slav. Did you guys know that? Guys, don't forget to support the stream. Don't forget to support the stream. We need donations. We're up to $381 out of our 500 goal, so that I can pay the opportunity cost of not working. Sorry, not working next week. Slav can be dynamic, but I think the semi-Slav can be more dynamic than even the normal Slav. But Arsenal, like a week or so ago, you made a comment that I always play Indian defenses, and I admit that I don't like classical d4d5 as much as Indian defenses. I like to be more hyper-monitored with the pawns, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible to play dynamic. Yeah, Botvinnik variation out of fashion. Botvinnik variation out of fashion. But you can play the Moscow. I think the Moscow variation is okay for black. Let's kind of replace the Botvinnik variation in the semi-Slav. So play like Marin and Marin and Moscow variations, and you have a quite dynamic repertoire. If you wanted to play the semi-Slav, I think like the Grigos, the move order, you can use like a pawn triangle move order or something. But okay, I think a lot of people would agree that the semi-Slav is a bit more dynamic than the normal Slav. Nevertheless, here we get solidity. Another advantage of playing e6 is that you avoid the stupid exchange variation. Groan. Someone here played knight f6. One of our mysterious ghost viewers who ghosted us. Hey, it's Miro. I think he did something like that against me and almost beat me, or so kind of sus. Knight f6. All right, c takes d5. White plays knight to c3 now. I've been throwing this around, the bishop g5. You thought it is Murano. The Murano, I don't know, what country you're from, probably it depends. In English, we call it the Marin. But I guess it depends if you're like German, English, what kind of chess books you read. C takes d5, c takes d5. Now knight to c3. Main move, knight f6, f3. So, I don't know how, like, this crazy guy, really strange guy, Carl Bohr, who's like a national master from Ohio. He's even got it called. It's even called the Bohr attack. The thing about f3, really is the fact that I guess it's not easy for black to carve this diagonal the way he would if the c-pawns were still on the board. If the c-pawns are on the board here, black can play c5 and undermine your center. What's the difference between this and a fantasy caro? Well, c-pawns are on the board. We have pawns on c2 and c6 in the fantasy caro. The pawn on c2, well, I think there's a big difference in the fantasy caro. White has a c2 pawn arse. So presumably, white would have a lot more options of maybe castling queenside, I would think. The fact that white has a pawn on c2 in the fantasy caro is gonna make it much more realistic. That I think that white could possibly castle queenside, without getting his ass handed to him. Um, in a lot of cases, the fantasy caro is kind of a risky system as well, but I think it's fairly safe to assume here that castling queenside for white isn't really the most viable possibility. WJ Loop subscribed for 55 months. We missed you as well. I would have played h4 as reply to bishop g5, and they would have called you on that illegal move. If you played h4 as reply to 4 bishop g5, I would be highly suspicious. That's worse than my like illegal like en passant capture at the World Senior. Yeah, no, there's definitely connections to the Black Mardimer, of course. That's the justification of this so-called Brandon Bohr attack. Come on, it's a typo. But the thing is, I can't even guess what your intention was. Like, it's a typo. I get it, but what the heck did you mean? You know what I mean? Like, you're like h4. What for? H what? I can't even guess what your move is. H something? 4 something? On bishop g5, you would have done what? h6? I mean, what's your suggestion? I couldn't even guess what it is now, like, I'm going with the h4 because I couldn't possibly guess what your mistake was. h6? h6, it's not a scary move, really. But playable. f3 is a thing. Now, what I want to play and what I can play are different things. What I want to play is e5. Talking about... What I want to do is like... Sorry, queen b6. Oops, I just clicked on that. This diagonal. How can we refute the Bohr attack? The Bohr War? Is that right? Bohr War. How can we kill this Bohr? I haven't seen the guy recently, but he was pretty bizarre. He was kind of creepy. Davidov played knight c6. Okay, we can't play e5, right? This just doesn't fly. Because if e5, pawn takes pawn, d4, pawn takes f6, this is not gonna... I mean, as much as Kurt Richter might have liked this, I don't think it's gonna fly. But I want to play e5 somehow. So it turns out this is a move. And this makes some sense. It's like your radar picked up, some kind of weaknesses on this diagonal. That's very in keeping with by the way, the Caro-Kann fantasy variation. Where like you're sort of like trying to set this up or something with the queen on b6. I'm just trying to take advantage of this somehow, But okay, it's fine. What Nefedov did is principled. He's just making like the principled move. Now white plays e4. Bohr, not Bodler. I'm bored. Nothing to be afraid of here, Yeah, I mean, white will push e5 with space advantage if given the opportunity to do so. So the point is, if pawn takes pawn d5, and that's the game. Now, interestingly, there's a game here with Johann Sebastian Bach and Prohaska. So interesting thing about that is the Prohaska is a longtime Caro-Kann player. He's been playing it since he was a kid. So I don't know if Peter plays the Slav, but I think you're good company if you've got a Caro-Kann player handling this with black. If he's allowing this, it must be okay. But intuitively, I mean, I want to look at e5 just to make sure. There's a game, this Risting guy, I had the Hangover game in Zalakaros like 5 years ago. There was this Hangover game where I felt great for like the first 15 moves, and then it hit me, you know. You know, sometimes you have a hangover, and the early stages of it aren't bad, and you actually feel good, and you're almost still like drunk, and then all of a sudden, like the bad part of the hangover gets you, you know. So it was like halfway through the game, I was like, oh shit, you know, the bad part of the hangover, and then I offered a draw, and he took it. Hangover Part 2. Arsenal, we're not gonna have to ban you today. As long as you don't start talking about poop, alright? Let's stay out of the kindergarten category. No, I was thinking of Riesling. Riesling wine. A dry Riesling. But I don't want to do this, you know? Like, I don't want to give him that space. It's probably okay, though. Alright, this is what Nefedov did. I always tell Asterbait not to put your... It's like Frogger. Did you guys ever play Frogger? They ripped it off like Crossy Road or whatever. Don't put your knight on c6 if it's going to get run over by oncoming traffic, you know? Maybe it's best to not do that. But I mean, this is kind of passive, you know? Banu's lost. That's not a good sign. What do you guys think? I mean, what can I do? G6? I mean, what about like A6? Well, there he is again. Drazic played A6. Drazic has lost like 200 rating points in 5 years. Speaking of rating poverty, I think Hungary and Serbia both have rating poverty. This Risting guy strikes again. E4. So what does Drazic? What does A6 do exactly? This is what I'm not sure. So you take. Well, it doesn't play knight c6, so you're not getting hit by a car. You know. I need to fix my donations alert. Uh-oh. What are you trying to say, Nefedov? Is it that the credit card doesn't work, or that I'm not being alerted? The credit card option doesn't work, or it's just not alerting us about my donations? Which one is it? I don't get what Drazic's move does, to be honest, now that I think about it. Let's see. F takes e4, e5. Well, that's all fine and good. Drazic is tricky. He plays the Kraken. You know, he's one of the only people. You're trying to say nothing unless you check your PayPal account. Dude, you made a donation. Don't be shy. Nefedov made a donation, and we appreciate that. Drazic loves a6. Yeah, this is interesting. Thank you, Netog. I keep wanting to call you Netog. Now we have Netog and Nefidov. Netog and Nefidov. Netog, Nefidov. Nefidov, Netog. All right. Netog's not here. Netog not here. Nefidov here. Netis. Yeah, it used to be the A words. I don't think that Drazic's move is anything special, but what the hell should black play? Bishop d7. I'm your bro. Is Netog here? What does bishop d7 do? Can I play bishop c6? It's a little bit like the Jabava London. How are we handling this? Well, it's all a question of like taking. A6, A6. I don't understand this move. Dmitry Komarov. The question is like, no, how can I not play knight c6? Yeah, play an effective move that allows me to play actively afterwards. I don't think this is going to be... This bishop d7 doesn't look convincing either. So we need an inspired move here. I mean, queen b6 is clearly a move. Anyway, okay. Boom, 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 boom. This is the main line of the boar attack. And now, this reminds me a little bit of the Dutch, anti-Dutch. There's F3 lines in anti-Dutch. Docteur of Love. In the anti-Dutch, we would go 95. A6 could come in handy here, actually. But, yeah, Nefedov played knight b8. I mean, he was hesitant to play this, presumably because of something like bishop f4. I don't know. What are you afraid of? Have you checked under the bed for monsters? Knight g6 is okay. We don't need to go, 100 selected games to be like doing that or something. It looks like knight g6 is okay. It's the tempo. So they normally take back here. And now Vegendre with white against Krstolovich is slow. A6 is slow. E6 is more like it. So this seems to be okay, Nefedov. Knight b8 is a bit passive. So after f takes e4, I'm thinking... Well, Nefedov, playable position. Just it's a little bit passive. This guy Lukovic played e5, and I understand that he played e5. I mean, I understand why he played e5, because he didn't want to get rolled off the board. But the problem with this move is that white keeps that powerful center. So Nefedov is more ambitious. But, I mean, we better call, like, Salo Floor and ask him if this Caro-Kann is okay. Because I don't know, man. Nefedov is really pushing the envelope here. I guess this is good for white. I don't think that black is lost, but you're definitely like on the verge of trouble here because white has so much space. But I do like in general Nefedov's wanting to attack that central pawn rather than just blockade the position. Intuitively, the problem is knight b8 was kind of slow. Mr. Slow, I have had this kind of position in my own practice here on lichess. And no, I mean, that's a normal idea. The check, bishop d7, pawn takes pawn looks scary. It's like a Albin. You don't say. So after bishop takes b5, pawn takes f7 check, king e7 only move, when we're not really too happy about the fact that there's a pawn on f7, I guess. After e6. Yeah, well, Mr. So's point, though, is important. What's this? Do we have to take back? I agree, it looks like white is better. And I mean, I think it's safe to say, like, this is definitely not great. So it has to be bishop here, pawn takes pawn. Let me see. Yeah, apparently ftc6 is okay for black. 0. But I mean, I'm scared too. You know, it looks like it's a little better for white. I would prefer to be white. White has a bit more space. And a bit, you know, well, space. I mean, and space allows us to develop more comfortably. I don't think it feels like 0. I mean, you could say what you want. I agree with Mr. Slow. It's a little better for white, but you're not lost. By the way, we have to take these computer evaluations with a grain of salt. You know, that's as usual. It's the engine evaluations are based on 20 moves of calculations, and there's just no way that we can really practically use that. It means like both sides have to play perfect moves for like 20 moves to come up with that evaluation. Most cases, that's not going to happen. But anyways, you played bishop e7. Does that lose a piece, Nefedov? No, it just, you know, you play bishop e7, d6, bishop f8. Nothing to see here, folks. What could possibly go wrong? No, you have to play pawn takes pawn, and it looks like some kind of weird Queen's Gambit accepted. White actually has the option to play e5 as well, which really gets strange. That's maybe why Nefedov second guessed himself here. I guess this. Yeah, it looks like something that Ivan Farago would have been happy with. Ivan played these like weird semi-towerish lines, which lead to these like endings where it was kind of equal. But I think you have to take, and he's probably best to take, and then you can now you can play bishop d6 and try to blockade. But I think this can still be scary. And if you play this, check. See, that's going to be, the shit hits the fan around there, right? Like where you get this in-between thing again. So let's say you get this position. What do we do now? You know, if you play bishop d6, you get screwed with a bishop g5 pin. If you play bishop e7, you get screwed with a bishop e5 check and d6. So how the heck does black develop his pieces here without getting in trouble? What are you going to do, like h6 or something? Bishop c5? Really provocative? I'm curious to see what the engine says here. It is bishop d6. Oh wow, bishop c5, Ron Henley. Don't tell anybody. It's Karpov. It's Karpov's novelty. Told you guys. Bishop c5. This is Karpov's novelty, according to Ron Henley. Don't tell anybody about the move, because Ron will get in trouble for stealing Roman's like accelerated dragon repertoire. I'm not sure Nefedov would have found this move. I bet he would have played bishop d6 or bishop e7. I'm not sure I would have found it either on the first try, but at least I had the right idea. So you need to trade pawns first. You played this and you walked right into that. Oof. That's serious oof, dude. That's an oof gun. Bishop e5 check. And like d6 is not an issue any longer. Is this still not an issue? You have a check on b5. Okay. Are you going to have to play bishop d8? Are you serious? Like d6, bishop takes b5. Knight takes b5, queen a5 check, knight c3? Or do you have some nasty move? Because I really don't want to do this unless I have to. It might be good, though. This is crazy. Wow. Nefedov is so hyper modern of you. Look at this. He had it all planned out. Bishop d8 with the idea of the snake Benoni. It's only plus 0.8 for white. Bishop takes d6. Here doesn't work, right? So check, bishop d7, d takes e6. And so white basically transposes to that structure where he has a very slight edge. Bishop d7. I saw this coming. Now, does white want to think about maybe not trading queens? He does. But I don't know. I mean, trading queens on d7 is probably helping out black. But you could just castle and let black trade queens on your terms. Queen e2 hopes, white is hoping that this queen is, like, I guess a target, but it might backfire. So here I thought we'd start playing, like, for knight d4 again, but you castled. Okay, knight e5 is not a problem. Castles. Knight c6. Nefedov conveniently traded off his bad bishop on c8. Both sides have an isolated pawn. And miraculously, black is basically okay. And then this happened. Now, that pawn is on the wrong color. I just want to make a note about that. This is a really committal move by white. I like the fact that his pawn is on a white square. So if I were white here, I think I would probably play something like king h1 and await developments. Or maybe, I don't know if rook d1 is a good idea. I'd really rather have the other rook coming over to d1. But I think king h1 looks sensible. But e5 fixing his pawn on the wrong color, gaining space, check. Oh, you would think the guy would consider king h1 now. But this is his idea. So he trades off his bad bishop. Well, maybe it's not so bad then. Maybe Nefedov could play a different move. What about knight d5? Knight d5, knight d4. You think white's better. White has more space. Still, you would be very, very solid here. Yeah, I mean, the weakness is a weakness. We've talked about this, Mr. Slow. I don't know how it works in the Black Forest of Germany, but a weakness isn't a weakness if you can't hear it fall. I mean, is a weakness really a weakness if no one saw it, make it sound, make a sound or whatever? Is this really a weakness? It's a strength. Nefedov's strength on e6. I still kind of vote for not pushing this pawn to e5 for white. Maybe he could attack that. Maybe he could find ways to attack that pawn, theoretically, on e6, but not the way he played it, really. So Nefedov plays bishop c5 check. I mean, he has options here. This looks pretty solid. for black. And yeah, white has some space, but at the same time, I still think white's on the verge of being overextended with that pawn there. But after this, Mr. Clark gets to trade off his bishop, so the push to e5 doesn't look that bad now, in lieu of that dark square bishop coming off the board. My main concern was that white had, several pawns like fixed on the wrong color. Takes, knight d5, and then I think now still the e5 pawn feels a tiny bit overextended. But maybe white can play this accurately. Is knight takes knight the best move? Could white try to pin him? There's also h7. I could play something like this. Nefedov is not going to lose this, though. I guess the pawn on e5 is really a mistake. God, that's a sad move to play a3, but what are you going to do? All options have to be considered, including b3. Any relation to Peter Clark? I almost feel like I like b3 better than a3. And Nefedov is getting ambitious now. You might want to consider h6 at some point, but that will also weaken your own, your own squares around your king. Uh-oh. Queen b5. Whoa. Queen b5? That's a weird move. Why don't you double rooks? Sign me up for a sacking exchange on f3. Nefedov would never do that. It's just, he loves draws too much. No, there's no knight h4. This pawn is hanging. Well, I mean, he just didn't, he thought it was a dead end. But I mean, I think the question is, could I possibly, legit sack an exchange at some point? Maybe not. He's probably going to have to go here anyway. At the end of the day. To be fair. And I don't think that this is really happening, So I'm not sure, I have any legit criticism for Nefedov for not playing rook f8. It's an obvious move. It's probably not that great. But what are you supposed to play? I mean, a5 deserves consideration. Yeah, I mean, rook f8 is probably not a bad move, but freezing that b pawn might not be a bad move either. It's a question of how much play white has. He can come down and this Mr. Slow's weakness, starts to be a real weakness, So it's complex. I mean, both sides have weaknesses. A5 and rook f8 aren't the safest moves. What is the safest move here for black? Let's say, if you really want to be safe. Well, okay, queen b5, buying time, and then on b4, I'm expecting b4 here. And I think we're seriously considering a5, breaking that up. And I think the black should be at least equal. But the guy surprises us. You're like, what? Wait, would you like to take that move back? There was some story about Bronstein and anecdote in 200 Open Games where he played Dusodmirsky, and Dusodmirsky demanded a take back or something. It stops rook d1 reply. Nefedov has stated, wait, Nefedov, queen b5 stops rook a d1 reply. Wait, let me check this out. Queen b5 stops rook a d1 reply. Stops. No, it doesn't. But I think the word you're looking for is perhaps discourages or decreases the likelihood of. You're obviously not preventing rook d1. I mean, his b pawn is hanging, but he could still play it. Maybe white sacrifices a pawn for the open file. Remember, I'm just teaching you guys how I think, it's best to think. Don't take things for granted, When you say it stops rook d1, you're not literally stopping rook d1. You're maybe distracting white by attacking his b pawn, but I don't think you're... To literally say you're stopping rook d1 is kind of a misstatement. But I think white needs to think holistically. White needs to have his head examined. I mean, on this move. Is white 5 years old or something? Where did that come from? My God, dude. e5 was a little ambitious. But I mean, g4 is like, wow. Fortunately, Karpov. Jeez, dude. I hope I was in time pressure. This is like the people you play online. You're just like, oh my God, he just played 20 moves like a master. And then he played g4. And then you're like, oh, that's why he's 1300. Man, this move is like trying to lose. If I didn't know better, I would think my opponent was trying to lose on purpose. You could probably sack the exchange now with rook takes f3 and have fairly legitimate compensation. Yeah, white is like, this is such a good example of an amateur player who has no sense of danger, You're playing an experienced player, Emmett Clark, and you didn't respect him, and you played g4. g4 is like, what were you thinking, When you don't play enough strong players, you don't get your ass handed to you enough. And when you don't get your ass handed to you enough, you start to become overconfident because you're just used to like beating on weak opponents. But g4 is the kind of move that is played by people who are used to just like beating on weak opponents. I mean, this is like fatally weakening the white king position. Rook f3, no thank you. I'm just saying, it's a... Nefedov, I'm not suggesting you play this move. I'm just saying the fact that this is almost sound is illustration for how bad g4 really is. You know what I mean? Like the fact that this move is almost playable should indicate to everyone just how bad g4 really is, Of course not rook takes f3. But I'm saying I could play this move against this guy and probably not lose. g4 is, bro, you have no realistic judgment. Rook f7 needs to be considered. But I'm not really seeing any reason to... I don't see any benefit in rook f7. It would be nice, though, to be honest. It would be nice to be able to like quickly double rooks. I wonder if Nefedov... See you later. I must go. My peace I choir twist. I will watch the replay. Psychiatrist. Say hi for me. Let them know you're regressing. You've been regressing at chess class a bit. I'll send in the report card later this week. G4, rook f8, b4. Well, I thought b4 was okay, but not g4. And now Nefedov zoning in on those weaknesses. Look at this. A5 is certainly a good move. But at the same time, you have to watch out. There could be a secret point of B4. He has this queen B3 that wasn't available until now. That could be like a nasty little surprise. Queen B3. I doubt it's a problem. Just play King H8, but one can never knows. Nefedov just goes here. This is very subtle, Nefedov. Is it enough, though? You know, can you really win this game with just your queen? Do we need do we need more? I mean, do we need A5? A5 is not a big deal, though. You know, probably. It's not a big deal. But did Queen C4 accomplish anything? That's the bigger question. Does this move actually accomplish anything? You're just forcing him to play H3, which is probably a reasonable move. Okay, here, Rook D1. Can I just see what the evaluation is here? -1. Okay. And the best move is Queen D5. And other moves include A5 and H6. So Nefedov's not winning, but White's really trying to lose this move G4. It's going to take more mistakes for White to lose the game. If only we could get our knight in. You have knight E5. This must have been tempting, dude. No, it's sarcasm. I wasn't... Yeah, I know it's not subtle. I was joking about Queen C4. Knight E5 is possible, but it simplifies. Despite his horrible G4, he's still probably hanging on. And now White's threatening the devastating knight to G5. This is awesome. Nefedov, it's like they had to pull his teeth, but he finally played H6. And now White played the move of the year. Knight G5. Arsenal fan? It looks like something Arsenal would do when he's excited. Knight to G5. An aroused Arsenal fan. Arsenal fan is in his opponent's time pressure. Now the idea is White thought he had a draw with pawn takes, Queen F7 check, perpetual check. So it looks like it forces perpetual checkmate. Oh, it's a reasonable try. I shouldn't make fun of it. You know, what the guy missed was Queen D4 check. His tactic works, but it just this is a problem. So now you have to trade queens, and now knight takes. This is protected, and now all the pawns are hanging. So he has to play knight e4, and now boom, boom. So let's check out the pawns, huh? Shall we? Whose pawns are more overextended? I mean, White had to try pretty hard, but he managed to find a way to lose. Nefedov didn't play badly. But he really had to be patient and wait for this guy to mess it up. And it's still not trivial, but 4 pawns against 2. And the key really here is, so we have these 2 connectors, whereas these 2 against 1 isn't as scary. I mean, this is a technical ending. I'd really like to get rid of one of those queenside pawns. His king is trapped, h5. And then the knight ending. The guy says no. That's a problem. If we lose one of those pawns, white is done for good. So now it's just like check and take, or what? e4. I was thinking knight g5 check. I was thinking knight g5 check, king moves, rook takes b4, knight takes e5. You know, this would be trivial to win. So honestly, I don't know. I mean, this move is a little bit weird. He blockades on e3. He stays with the 2 outside pawns. You're probably totally winning, but this seems like simpler to me, Davidov. After check, king moves. I mean, he gets his pawn true. I mean, you're 3 pawns to 0, though. I don't think there's any way that white can save this game. I mean, e4 leaves you kind of stuck, and those pawns are still, you know, they're still there, and they're still like threatening to go down the board. That's a little bit alarming. You know, it's like you're playing for mate. Probably time pressure. And these pawns, my God. Yeah, it's getting scary. Knight c6 was best. But is that really a problem? The computer says knight c6 was best. But why is it an issue? I think you're winning here. It doesn't really matter at this point. It's not gonna save him. Nah, he's lost. All right, Nefedov, very solid effort against the boar attack. Boar war, boar, 100% boar. That was a bore. The Slav is already boring. All right. Art Vega, Snedsteg versus Art Vega. Wow. Okay, so WJ Lou, thanks for subscribing earlier. Astrobate, see you later. Guys, we've got a couple games left. Snedsteg, Sung Prism, and Astrobate. I'm sorry we didn't do Astrobate's game before he left. Usually he gets it in earlier. He was late this week. So this is Snedsteg. I don't know if Sned is here. D4 F5. Glad to support the channel. Wish it was more. Me too. I have a tournament coming up in 2 weeks, so any donations will go toward that. Our donation bar is inflated by Nils, who donated $60 of his payment for lessons. So donation bar should be, I know this is stupid to say this, but it should be at 381, whatever. All right, F5, Bishop G5. Yeah, I like Bishop G5. This is one of the best, if not the best, anti-Dutch. Got all the money tied up in Powerball markets. Yeah, my money's in apartments that I can't sell. So I feel your pain. Hungarian real estate market sucks, and so I'm broke because basically I only own money on paper, or actually, all my money is just symbolically. I really don't have any effective. I have no liquidity, so I'm just might as well go be homeless. Well, I have a place to live, but I can't afford to pay my like energy bills and stuff. All right, bishop g5, knight f6. This is unusual. Normally, most players play h6. You do see the g6. I had a friend who was a Dutch player, and interestingly, when he played against the Dutch, he used to play this with white. And I remember him having some games. This another old Russian player who, g6 is a line. They had some crazy games with like h4. Morozievich Carlson. All right, let's see what happened here though. Knight f6. You're not obligated to take here. You can play knight c3 and transpose back into the knight c3 anti-Dutch. And so apparently also knight to d2, which is like a Heinrich Chepokaitis. Where's Nedi? Lithuanian. Latvian. I don't know. Chepokaitis might have been Lithuanian, I'm not sure. But he used to play the Trompowsky with this knight d2 type of thing. This is recommended, and then the fact that you not playing knight c3 here means your c pawn can move to c4. This would be a good like Mr. Coffee anti-Dutch. Anyone who plays the Tourney attack type of stuff, or Trompowsky obviously, can appreciate this. But I think that black needs to be careful. There's this. I'm warning about a couple different maneuvers. Queen e7, knight d8, knight f7, and also knight. Maybe the knight would fall back to e7 in some positions. The one thing that concerns me for black is this type of thing where you're just like, your pawn structure is getting chopped. This doesn't look good. And the other possibility is that black tries to play c6, but then you end up with this like ugly, very ugly structure. Kulinichev, Putupov, Hippopotupov. Oh, anything will make me laugh. Hippopotupov. Alexander. Hippopotupov. All right. So c4. Good. Yeah, I mean, what to call it? It's a good Trompowsky. There's also queen b3. So I'm just thinking, like, if you try to do bishop e6, this would alarm me a little bit. Bryon Nikolov, one of the greatest alcoholic chess players of all time, famously fell asleep against Kamsky at the board. Rip. Um, this looks good. And now Art Vega. What was the time control here? Jeez. Art's gonna play bishop e6, but Art is in trouble in the opening here. He doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't play the Dutch much. This is a bad position for black. Yeah. I like 92. You've got knight f4. In this type of structure, white has a couple different ways to really bust black. Like, first of all, there's like h3 and g4. If black plays g6, you can do knight f4 and h4, h5 to try to crack his structure. So I should mention here also another common plan. Oftentimes white will put the queen on f3, though it looks a little bit artificial. The knight on f3 isn't actually that great because it doesn't have anywhere to go. So you're normally not putting knight on f3 anyway, and the queen on f3 kind of puts pressure here. It supports h3, g4. It supports castling queen side in some cases. The knight goes to e2 behind it. So this is really a very standard move, I would say, for white. Black doesn't have any other choice. Knight d7. You know, as I said, it would have been better to put the knight on c6 in the first place. Now he has to settle for this. White has a very good position. Bishop e6. And then what? A dramatic move. Just when you thought it was safe to get out of the water. We expected white to play a quiet move, like, I don't know, knight f4. Not rocking the boat, so to speak. And I think that white has a stable advantage. But suddenly out of nowhere comes d5. Whoa, bro, where did that come from? So white was like, oh, yeah, I have another kind of way I can be better here. Blasting it open, because your king is in the center. Does anybody want to castle queenside? Maybe a case of fancy play syndrome. Well, I don't think so. You know, I think you have a legitimate case here for changing tack. Look at this position. I mean, the guy's king is here. His bishop's on f8. His only hope is to maybe castle queenside. But you need to calculate this. You know, this can't be based on intuition. Like, you have to say, okay, if I play d5, can this guy legit castle queenside? Can I sack my queen? I'm like freaking Lev Albert. Because sign me up for this, dude. Albert sacked his queen against a friend of mine at the New York Open once. I've never been a huge fan of Albert, but this actually looks like a pretty good queen sack, bro. I mean, like, how exactly does black get out of this? Rook takes d1, rook takes d1. You have perfect development. The pawn's on e6. His bishop is paralyzed. His knight sucks. His king is exposed. His queen is blockading the passed pawn. This has got to be really bad for black. But I don't know if you can break him down. That's the question. Yeah. See, it just hangs out. Damn, that's sick, man. The computer says that black is okay here. Jeez. Why the F rook? Okay, it's not important, WJ. I thought maybe our other rook goes to c1 and shadows the c file. But the computer says it's just equal or slightly better for black. It's unbelievable. I guess this is legit fancy play syndrome, but I thought that We have enough compensation. It's too fancy. But my point is, like, when you go into this, you need to have your ducks lined up, as they say. So I was looking at knight f4. You want to get out of the pin, and then you're golden. But are you compromising his pawn structure here? Because I thought we would do it this way, and then if he goes like bishop f7, we could just like step away from the chalupa with, say, like queen c2. And I think this is very good for white. So I think this is an issue. If he can take twice on d5 without compromising his structure, the next move by you is quite arbitrary. I mean, you know, you can clearly just take here and get your pawn back. You're still better, but not that much. Maybe not much at all. Yeah, so it's a mistake. No, I mean, I think, like, legit, after castle's knight f4, you're threatening knight takes e6. What does he do? You know, he has to move the bishop. And now you just go here, and you're threatening to blow him up. And if you blow his structure up, he's done. So I don't really see a move for black. If I'm going to be completely honest, I thought his only move is c5. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, this is the only chance. If this works, if this doesn't work, he's done. He can't have his king in a position where his, like, pawn structure's splayed open, you know, like, if he can keep it closed, he's probably going to live, or can live for a while, but you almost have a tactic, but no, almost doesn't work. Another reason WJ Loof like a pawn. No, I like this for you. This is a mistake. But you probably played this kind of lazily. I mean, maybe you have knight f5. Nothing clear here, though, either. No, I think you played a little too automatically. Damn. Now he's like totally alive. He's alive and up a pawn. Ooh, that's subtle. Rook c8. Can I play rook c8? Yeah, rook c8 is best. His best shot at defending, maybe the only shot at defending, is rook c8 now. This is too strong. I mean, I might be off base, but I got the really distinct impression that maybe Ardviga doesn't play the Dutch after this game. Now you have a typical scenario where the two pieces are not as good as the pawns. Although I think you're perfectly safe going into this ending. Only white can win this position. Maybe it's a draw, but you're easier to play. It's blitz now. I wonder about this move. Maybe you should play rook c2. Because you keep him cut off. I think that white is playing for a win here. Undoubling his pawn. Well, attempting to undouble said pawn. e4 might be good. bs 97, 85. Well, at least he got his king to the center. I wonder if this is a mistake, though. I mean, you're threatening rook c6. That's awkward. I think black has to consider king b7. Maybe this isn't a big deal. It should be a draw at this point. You let him compromise your pawn structure. Fortunately, you're better. You could be worse if you're not careful. And yeah, objectively, this is a draw. Totally draw. If you drop a pawn, you're probably in danger of losing. You're very in danger of losing. So he dropped. Oh, he took that. And then, okay, so he must have missed it on this, like this one goes. Wow. So after h takes g, he has to be careful. Yeah, but I mean, clearly black is fine. This is kind of sad. Bullet, blitz, bullshit. It's a draw. a5. Ain't nobody should win this position for either side. At this point. You know, this is sad that he lost this. Okay, anything can happen. He's trying to win, maybe. You know, he has two connected pass pawns, too. I guess, to be honest, he was really over-pressing, trying to win. And your pawns are dangerous as well. So. He offered to draw at some point. Oh, you offered to draw at some point, yeah. He was trying too hard to win. Okay. Last two games, Sung Prism Bullet Master. We got to try to teach Sung Prism to appreciate the slow chess, because he's just talented, but just doesn't do slow enough. Slow down. All right, guys, last two games, and then tomorrow we're going to be back with blitz challenges in the morning. Hey. Guys, please donate, support the effort to play in GM tournament coming up 26 Feb. By the way, what happened to my... Oh my god. Guys, what happened to my link? Did my link die? I guess 2 hours it died. How long does a link last, anyway? Customize time. It says manually unpinned or end of stream. I thought I did that. It's still pinned weird. It wasn't on my screen. That's weird. It totally disappeared from mine. My Twitch. I thought it was gone. If you guys check it out, Lee Marvin already overpowered Alice Lee. Alice Lee is packed up in last place in the first Saturday GM. Wow, that's a surprise. These Hungarian round-robin tournaments are so easy, you know. Welcome to reality. Welcome to YM2331, you know. I came to Hungary because everyone here is like, you know, they're all overrated. It's like, whatever, dude. No, we've got a strong tournament coming up. All right, so last two games. Sun Prism is black. Oh, another Slav. Good for white. G3, I like G3. And now, you have a couple options here. Grabbing the pawn and knight f6. And those would be my main considerations. But apparently, like, bishop g4 is okay. Alice Lee. Alice Lee got a taste of reality in the first Saturday. Now she's like withdrawn from my tournament. It'll probably be like an Esserman thing. Oh, I had a stomach virus. But at least she had the decency to like pull out of the tournament like more than 2 days before the event, unlike some people. If you're like supposed to play in a round robin tournament, do the organizer a favor and don't tell him like 2 days before the tournament that they need to find a replacement for you. At least in Alice Lee's case, we have, the organizers had like a week and a half to find a replacement. They already found someone. Pashtiaran is probably as strong as her at least. And now the Chinese guy, who was the lowest rated, is no longer on the list. So we need one more player, but it should be easy to find someone. 2280. But I feel bad now because I'm the lowest rated player in the tournament now. If they don't find someone below 2331, I'm going to be the lowest rated player in the tournament. It's really weird. I've played in the bottom. I've been one of the lower rated players of a lot of GM tournaments. I guess at some point I must have been the lowest rated, but off the top of my head, I don't know if I can remember specifically being the lowest rated. Usually I'm like 8 or 9 out of 10 or something, but not necessarily like the lowest. Right now I'm the lowest. G6, bishop G2, bishop G7, castle, knight F6. So you're just playing a Schlechter Slav / Grunfeld now. Transposing, oh god. Just offer a draw if you're white here. Nefedov plays this against me. Castles. I've been playing this opening for white since I was like 15, even younger. And Westchester Quads, Mr. Coffee, 1987. I remember a game. There was this expert who used to play. I can't remember his name. It's just coming back to me. It'll come back to me. You before your time, though. God, this is tough, dude. Nothing is good for white. Queen b3, b3. I used to play the Grunfeld with black, too. There's just no way for white to get an advantage here. It's like impossible. It's unbelievable to me that white even has a plus score. It's just... So the main line is c takes d, and queen b3 is just hopeless. I think Shanklin recommends a5, right? Like, this is... Nefedov would never play that, but b3, hello? Well, the point is to play bishop b2. Being the low-rated player, what? Must be good for gaining rating. It's good for realizing you suck, too. No. Right now, the average is 2416, and I'm 2331. All we need is someone 2280 to keep the average over 2400. So we'll keep the category. And 6.5 out of 9 would be a GM norm. If it drops down below 2400, it's like 7 out of 10 or whatever. 7 out of 9. It's really hard. There's a big difference between 6.5 and 7 out of 9. And also, because my rating is lower, it's better because, like, The category is actually, I mean, the average rating of the other players is actually higher than the average because I'm bringing the average down. So my required performance would be a little bit less than other people. So Sun Prism now play knight on bd7. This move is insipid. After b3, you have several options. Bishop f5. What are your options? Bishop f5, c5, screw you anyway. I'm not surprised if this is a move. Because b3 is so weird, right? Hey, I want to weaken the diagonal. Tempo down. But I would play bishop f5. This is a standard line. I've actually played this with white. Knight c3, knight e4. Very solid. Yeah, 2600 performance for GM norm. Exactly. You know, they'll probably give you credit if you have like a 2598 or something and it's your third norm. Or they make exceptions like that. Like, you're within like a fraction. So-called like bad norm, traditionally. If I have two good norms and like my third norm is 2597 performance or something, the title committee can like, you know, say, okay, it's close enough or something like that. But I've never had a performance rating like higher than 2520 or something like that in a round robin tournament. No, so you play knight on bd7. I don't understand what we're doing here with knight on bd7. Like, what's the plan with this? Like, we're blocking our bishop. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand this move. Why? Why would you play knight on bd7? It's such a weird move. It's like if it's already there. Like, I bet like most of the games where this position was played, there's a whole bunch of games here. I'm gonna wager that like most of them, the knight was already on d7. You know, and they like castled or something. But your knight isn't on d7. There's no reason to put it on d7. I mean, you should either play this or bishop f5. You know, or you do something crazy. There's takes on c5. I looked at this with white. And there's the c5 right away. Kind of similar idea. And alternatively, I don't know what else to suggest. I mean, maybe some weird moves like knight a6, a5. No, a5 may not be that bad. I think I lost a game with white 20 years ago against Lajos, where I was black and Jurkos played b3, and I didn't really know what to do against it. Sometimes I get this in the King's Indian too. I'll even play a tempo down, maybe like d6, d5 in 2 moves. a5 is not that bad, but this move I really dislike. And then white plays knight on bd2. But why knight on bd2? The knight is more active on c3. Like, white should play bishop b2 and then await developments. Maybe we can put the knight on a more aggressive square. We'll see. He just commits to d2. George Meyer. There's a surprise, right? George Meyer, aka like Baby Kramnik. No, I was looking at playing these lines with white, and it was like George Meyer and Kramnik were the two of the best, really, examples. Bishop e2, and now e6. But this is not too inspiring. You know, you've played like e6 and rook e8. It's kind of like, well, what about your bishop is buried here? You're going to have to play b6? And that's what you did next. So essentially it turned into like a Catalan, where you're like fianchettoed on the king's side, and e4 is best. So another game before I was born. Chom Istvan versus Paoli, Pennsylvania. 1972, June. Zoltan. Mehmet Zoltan when he was 23.97. Legit. E4. Yeah, baby. The E4 is a good move. Now what are we going to do? Jeez, this doesn't look good, man. What is happening? This is really bad. This is a bad Catalan. Where is your knight going? Okay, so at this point, you got yourself in trouble. And it looks like A5 is the only move that has a reasonable score. I wouldn't call it a plan. No, I don't touch this for black. Look at some guy played knight f8 here. How disgusting is that, man? Seriously. What are you doing? What about taking here on e4? Notice that all three players took on e4. I agree. I don't think like allowing e5 is an option here. Sung Prism. Like, you just don't have a place to put your knight. Yeah, you were just talking about it. Okay, because like, I always talk about the fact that the cheater, Rousis played like a Catalan against me where he put his knight on h7, and I always thought that was really weird. You know, nobody puts your knight on h7 in the Catalan. But even that's better than what you did. You know, like seriously. If you have to do something, I guess h6, e5, knight h7 wouldn't be that bad compared to like putting it on h5 or something. This is a concession, of course, you have to take. But the situation isn't great. You know, you're not happy here, essentially. So knight e4, and now what do? Do we take or do we play? We can't allow knight d6, so you have to take. Take here. Just a comment. White needs to think about this because there's a possibility that if you take with the pawn, he could play knight to g5. It didn't happen in a game here, but I just want to just bring this up because it's not, it's not relevant. It didn't happen in any of the games in the examples here. How does black deal with that, for example? Because I've played white a lot in these type of positions. I'm always looking for like subtleties. This move might be an issue. If I get in there and play like c5 and I'll stick a knight on d6. So I think the point or the lesson of the thing is that you should take with the knight, not just take. Like you need to take with the knight to make sure he has to take with the knight. And then if knight g5, well, that looks pretty bogus, right? I mean, I don't think you can do that. You have to take on e4 with the knight. And so you would have gotten to this Chom game from 1972 where Istvan is better. But, okay, black's position isn't great, but it looks defensible. Is black lost here necessarily? Shockingly, there's like a correspondence game or something. That's unbelievable. Casper Chopin. That can't be an over-the-board game. Bishop b7. No, this isn't good, but it's playable. You're slightly worse. You're clearly worse, but whatever. We can try to survive. What I try to do with white oftentimes is like stuff black with something like c5. Now we have to watch this diagonal. But say rook d1. See, the problem for black is that you can't free yourself with c5. If you can't free yourself with c5, you're stuck with a bad bishop. So you're stuck, being Schumacher or whatever, Queen c7, rook c8. Let's say queen c7. And then Mazzoli played knight e5 here. Ba-doop. Yeah. This is very unpleasant for black. This is very unpleasant. All right. So you got a terrible position. Your knight is out on h5. But oh my god, you got in c5. His e5 pawn is kind of tender. Maybe it's not an issue. It feels like he got away with something here. How did this happen again? So he goes e5, knight h5. Maybe this is a mistake. It's a normal sort of type of move. I mean, this might be a move, and then knight f1, knight e3. You undermine his center. He moves his queen. You play knight c5. No, this is it. Oof. That's not good. But white has knight e4 in mind. So this is a tactic. You could always sack your queen. I'm gonna assume that, like most cases, it doesn't work. Take. I love this knight on h5, dude. That's unbelievable. Knight on h5 is so sick. So takes, and then here, and then you did that to sidestep knight d6. But it's not necessary. He's not threatening knight d6. Oh, I see, because the pawn takes d7. Maybe you have another way to do it. Like, but what? This doesn't work because of knight d6. This, maybe. He dropped a piece. Boom. Wait, what? Queen takes d6, pawn takes d5. That doesn't matter. He lost a piece. Yeah. Yeah, that was lucky. That was lucky. I love this. Knight on g7. This is a little too provocative. No, f6. Do we really need to do that? I guess you would get blocked in if you didn't. All right. Anyway. Not a lot of pawns left, just enough to win the game. Oh my goodness. There goes g6. Are we winning here? Just 2 pawns left. Yeah, that's bad. He needs to play 95 check. But I presume you're probably winning. Takes, rook a4. This is not enough. All you need is 1 pawn. Alright, good game. Next. Last game. Guys, thanks for watching. Astrobate had to go to the psychologist, but he was going to watch the VOD, so this is his game. Usually earlier in the stream, Astrobate is white, his opponent plays knight c6, and he plays e3. Really very, very questionable decision to play e3 here. He's normally playing b3, but I think at this point all bets are off. You know, I would say screw it. You know, go outside your normal and play like e4, back to e4 or something. Like, don't play e3. This is too passive. So we're basically playing the Owen defense in reverse. Now e4 is a good move for black. Obviously, you know, c4 or d4 are white's best moves here. Now we transpose back into something. Wilfredo Sariego. I don't know who that is. But it certainly sounds Brazilian or something. Bishop b5. Yeah, it's not great. Better to play like f6 for black. f6 or bishop d6. This doesn't really solve the problem. And the way that black played this effectively sacrifices a pawn. But does black have enough compensation here? Now he has to play knight e7. This is the best shot. Maybe black has some compensation. This looks kind of artificial. And gotta watch for this. So I don't know. I mean, I would take with the bishop on c6, smash the black's king protection, and then probably settle for this. And we're up a pawn, and black's king is not safer than the white king. And you can actually castle queenside. So I think that white has options. White has options as far as placement of the king here, but queenside seems like clearly the safest. So he did this. And he did queen e2, and that's fine, because bishop e4, actually f3, no problem. We don't have to rush for that exchange. And now he did check, but what's the follow-up? Bishop d4? Black has knight c8 to defend, I guess. Well, only if you move your knight. Bishop d4 doesn't do anything, because we have c5. Actually not. This may work. This seems to work. So bishop d4, it looks pretty good. He has to play c5. Okay. Yeah, bishop d4 is one of the best moves, but Astorbate's move is also good. This is a cute move. I gotta give him credit. He's getting the hand, getting the feel, handle, getting the feel of these b3. But knight a3 isn't obvious, because it doesn't look like it has any squares. Yeah, I agree. Castle long. Queen e2, castle long. Asterbate has talent. And the more he gets into the middle game, the stronger he gets. He's terrible in the opening. Once he gets out of the opening, we see him just like playing chess and coordinating the pieces. He's very good. But I think the main thing about knight a3, it's just like getting out of the way to castle and protecting c2. Really, it's not necessary to protect c2. But it's the only place to put the knight. It might come in handy, and it keeps e5 protected. So this is good. Knight c8. And then check. And now here. And unfortunately, we have to be careful here. Because if you blunder bishop d4, hello, that's not a very pleasant surprise. So this was essential. It is cute. This was a cute game. Difficult to recommend a move here for black. I think I would probably go with queen h2. If I have to choose, if you force me to make a move. Just for shock value, I would probably play this. Because this is so crushing. Like any normal move, we're just like taking this, and it's brutal. You're mated. It's totally over. So I think I would just have to say Queen H2. He took the pawn. Took the pawn. And that's where he didn't take the queen. He went for mate. And now bishop d3. And then a very nice move. Knight b5 check. Blocking. And now the only move. And then mate. Good games. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Thanks for tuning in, anonymous player. Yeah, short, sweet, easy to beat. And speaking of that, we'll be back tomorrow with Blitz challenges, 12 noon. 12 noon. European Central Time. We will see you guys then. Thanks, Mr. Coffee, for joining us as our moderator. We'll see you all. Thanks for the support. Friday Blitz. Good games, guys. Thanks for submitting the games. Interesting stuff. Thanks for analyzing with me and keeping me company for 3 hours here. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.